Ladies and gents, a huge welcome back to your professional diploma in digital marketing and SEO. Today's lesson is all about free digital marketing options, one of my favorite subjects indeed. There are so many marketing options that don't come as monetary cost, and today we're going to be going through some of which those are and how we can dive onto using them. So let's really have a look at what today's lesson was all about. We will be starting off this lesson by getting to know Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn in a bit more detail by peeling back their layers. This is not a social media marketing course. However, social media is a part of digital marketing, and I do want you to include it in your thought and decision-making processes. Then we'll have a look at how SEO actually works, and I'll take an opportunity to introduce you into the Google Search Console. Then we'll have a look through Google My Business and how it can benefit you. And then finally, we'll check out some of the free marketing options and tools that you can use to your benefit to kickstart your business in the right fashion and obviously get that momentum you need to start operating. So first, let's get to know a little bit more about Facebook and Instagram. And obviously, what we need to look at with regards to Facebook and Instagram is how this as a channel selection could obviously help drive our overall performance in our business. So let's get stuck into what we would benefit the most from with regards to these specific platforms and obviously portraying a specific message that we need to get out there. So let's start off with the basics. This is what a Facebook business page looks like. And please remember that you don't want to use your own personal profile for your business because obviously it's a personal profile and has a lot less functions in what we're actually looking for as a business. Anyway, this is the landing page on Facebook for Shaw Academy. And at the top of the page is where the cover picture would be. You can use this either to highlight the content that you're offering or add your slogan to, as we did over here. You use something eye-catching. That's what a cover page is all about. You want to really just focus on drawing that initial intention in. Then we have the profile picture. A lot of companies would use their logo here, as this is also what you would see as the preview when you're making posts and obviously make it easily recognizable. Then at the top of the page we have the title. Usually that would be the same as your business, and then just below you have your username. This is how people tag you in posts, so making sure to indicate something that is recognizable, easy to understand, and obviously type out is a very good advantageous aspect here. Then on the right here we have the page button. There's a variety of possibilities you can choose from to have a call to action straight at the top of the page. In this case, the button would redirect you to Shaw Academy's home page. So depending on what your goal is, you would use a different call to action with different URLs. Then below, we have different tabs that are displayed, and these are customizable. They really are, and they can be quite fun to actually play around with and obviously engage with too from a customer's perspective. You can change the order and obviously what you want to display. Again, depending on your individual needs and what you would like to highlight to users, you could really achieve just by navigating those buttons correctly and obviously making them fun to engage with. Then if we scroll down on the left, we see an about section. Now this is very important for every business to make sure they get right, because this is where you would want to add a description about who you are and include your relevant keywords as well. This is something that we want to talk about in a bit more throughout this course, but just keep in mind that even on social media, keywords are extremely relevant. Anyway, then in the lower half of this about section is the opportunity for you to add your contact details and other profiles so that users can easily navigate through the different platforms without having to go and actually look for them. I'll show you how to get that set up in due course, but for now just understand that it can be portrayed there and it should be easily recognizable for the users to actually catch on with. And you should include it in the about section because that's generally close to the top and one of the first things that the users will see. And then on the right we have our posts, and this would generally be the timeline basically of the business's page, and if you keep scrolling you'll see the other posts that follow thereon, and it's all within a specific period of time that you can obviously see these, and they're all dated. So generally that's the basic structure of a Facebook page. So let's have a look at how to properly set that up in an about section, which is really not that difficult. Right, when you're looking at setting up your profile, the very first thing that you will probably see is general info about your company. You'll obviously have to fill out your name as well as a username, and obviously fill out a description about your business. This all helps the coding of Facebook help people navigate to your page who have an interest in what you have to actually offer. So filling this information out is vitally important. Don't get too long-winded on the description though. You want to be brief, concise, and get straight to the point of what your business does, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier on, how people can get a hold of you. Editing your page info is one of the most important things to make sure you spend the most amount of time on, because this needs to be the first eye-catching and descriptive process of who you are and how you are positioned on social media. So make sure that you do get that right. Now, one thing I definitely want to show you is Facebook Insights, which is similar to Google Analytics, but just for Facebook in this case. If you select the Insights tab when you go into your own business page, this is where you will see the metrics on your posts and followers. It's a rabbit hole that can suck you in for hours and hours and hours. So go in with a clear goal and find the data that you need as soon as possible. The overview section gives a high-level breakdown of various metrics. For example, you can see the actions on your page, the number of page views, post engagements, so very handy stuff here. If you click on one of the overview sections, you can see more information. For example, here I've clicked on actions on page. You can see a breakdown of actions on your page, from directions to clicking action buttons, so the total actions on a page between a certain date and a range, and then people who click the action button thereon. You can also see an age and gender, country, city, device. There's so much more information that you can actually use to your benefit, which would obviously help you with your marketing campaigns and segmentation. There's a ton of information here and it must be used wisely, but as I said, go in with a clear goal and don't get sucked into the rabbit hole because it can get pretty long-winded. Looking at the Post Insight tab, you can see things such as when your fans are online, as well as other useful insights that could be beneficial for you. But as an example, looking at the times when your followers are online, you could actually use this to test when you want to schedule a post, for example, in order to maximize the potential engagement with it. An example of this could be when that time peaks, do your post gain a higher reach or more engagement? And you can run different assessments and tests for yourself just by posting out of prime time versus posting at a time that you've identified to have the highest engagement or online presence of your fans. If they don't, then you know that this is something that you could look into and actually test in order to be more efficient and effective with. Below what I've just shown you, you can see the reach and engagements on your post. So a very good thing here is to divide your engagement by your reach to determine your engagement rate. And then what you want to do is analyze your post to see if you can improve that. For example, was it a case of missing a call to action? Well, it could have been, but maybe the image was also not so relevant to the copy and tons more of information that you can actually use to your benefit. Remember when we spoke about our buyer personas and our target audience last week? Well, we need to know exactly who our customers are as well as what our goals are. And then we can take this knowledge and actually use it to decide on the platforms we need to be more active on, more maybe than others, and obviously just integrate our funnels in line with that. That's why stats are vitally important for us, because it helps us be a lot more effective and efficient in the decisions that we make and what tools we use to decide would be the best fit for our business. We need to utilize these statistics to our benefit, and it really comes down to just spending a bit more time digging into the back end. So at the moment, Facebook has about 2.8 billion active users, for example. And if you don't already know, then let me just shine light on the fact that 43% of Facebook's users are male, whereas 57% are female. And more than half of the users are between the ages of 18 and 34 years old. Whilst this might seem like you shouldn't really target users above that age, Facebook is actually the primary platform for people aged 35 and above. So if you're targeting people from this age group, then Facebook is really the place to be. The platform is losing popularity with teenagers though, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Another fun fact is that 81% of users access the platform through their phones. So you definitely need to make sure that your posts and pages are more mobile friendly in this case, meaning that there's not too much text and image sizes work best with mobile phones, and it just really fills the screen up in order to make it the most engaging post possible, right? You don't want just text and images that are more specific to PC. You want to make sure that your posts engage with mobile userness a lot more friendly than what you might have had to think about initially. Now that we know who is active on Facebook, let's take an opportunity to talk about what we would actually be looking to achieve in using the platform. So essentially, Facebook is the perfect platform to build your brand awareness on, especially since so many people are actually using it. And it's a great way to encourage engagement and properly build relationships with your customers. It's not just a platform that you would use to really push sales, but it's all about the branding. You can also use the platform to get to know your customers a bit better. There's a big range of insights that you can get from each profile, and you of course can leverage Facebook to increase the traffic to your website. So if you're thinking about Facebook from a marketing funnel perspective, the top goals would definitely be awareness and interest. Those would really be the ones to look out for. And for your general objectives, Facebook could really help with your branding, awareness, and engagement. Keep that in mind. Let's move on to the second biggest social platform out there, which is Instagram. Instagram is undoubtedly one of the biggest factors that we can take into consideration. I'm sure you'll manage that just fine because it is quite a simple platform to utilize, but let's have a look at how we can use it for professional purposes. The only important thing that you need to think about right away is creating an account for your business, because a personal and business account do vary. I would suggest that you switch to a professional account when you sign up to Instagram, just to make it easier to obviously manage the settings and analytics from a business perspective. So let's first have a look at what Instagram profiles actually look like. So at the top left, we have again our profile picture. So if you notice, this is the exact same profile picture as we have on Facebook in our previous example. I would recommend that you think about this too, because then it obviously becomes a lot more recognizable across all the different social media platforms, and therefore a bit more engaging. Now then, just below that, we have the name of your business, and then the bio, and also a link. The bio is where you can obviously just show who you are, include a little bit of a description about yourself and what you do, and then you can obviously even insert a call to action here as well, which could be quite fun to engage with. And this place is really the only spot where you can actually include a clickable URL to your Instagram profile, so choose wisely. You can update it, of course, allude to the link in your bio from posts and your stories, and this will directly refer users to that page. Then if we look down again, users will have the option to message the profile or send an email. And then just below that, you'll see all the amazing posts that the page can actually offer and engage for the client. And if you look just below that, then you'll see all the posts that the page can release to their followers. Now this is what you'll see when you're looking at someone else's profile. If you're looking at your own, this is what will pop up. So you'll see some additional buttons. For example, you can edit your profile, manage your promotions, which is basically your ads in this case, and also see your insights, which you can also access through the professional dashboard that's made available to you. The insights here function very similar to Facebook, and they show you how people are active, your followers, your most popular posts, and so on and so on and so on. As I mentioned in the previous slides, obviously the engagements that you can have with the analytics is quite vast. You just need to make sure that you're looking at it in order to understand them, and the more you look at it, the more comfortable you'll become with actually understanding the data that is presenting itself. You know, obviously it's quite intimidating to look at insights from the start, right? I totally get that, I understand it. However, the more you interact with the data and the analytics and all the insights into what's going on, the more comfortable you'll be with it. And obviously, the more engaging you'll be with your numbers, and obviously the more inclined you'll be to act upon the numbers that you're getting. It's very important just to make sure that you always stay engaged and you always stay on top of how people are interacting, and obviously what is standing out the most, so you can be more efficient in the types of posts that you put out there and the type of engagement that you can actually act upon. So take note of that and just start getting more comfortable with what you are putting out there to the general public. As I said, with 1.2 billion users, Instagram is the second biggest network after Facebook. That's a huge statement and huge achievement. 49% of its users are male, while 51% are female. So it's fairly even. However, more than half are aged between 18 to 34 years old. And the younger the users are, the more likely it is that they are going to be active on the platform several times a day. Instagram users are also active on other platforms, especially Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. And the most popular topics on the platform are travel, music, food, and drink, closely followed by fashion and film. So very interesting facts to take into consideration there, because you can use those different categories in order to market your type of business in that same fashion of, food, drink, fashion, whatever. You could, if you, for instance, have a plumbing business and you want to talk about DIY plumbing, you could do it whilst also reviewing food or a type of drink that stands out, or you could do it whilst listening to popular music trends, all right, or whilst traveling and talking about the country that you're in and how plumbing could be different there versus your own hometown. You can integrate these different categories into how you actually speak about your business. So you can get quite creative. You don't only have to be operating within those specific sectors, but you can integrate them. And just remember that and take that into consideration when thinking about how to integrate your business into this. So what's the purpose of using Instagram? Well, rather than just pushing sales, it is your chance to make your business seem a bit more human. Yes, you can also showcase your products, but give it a deeper context, especially since Instagram is such a visual platform and people aren't just having to sit there and read text. They're a lot more interested in going onto Instagram because the posts can be a lot more engaging and obviously more visually pleasing to actually go through. Instagram users do tend to be quite engaged, so you should use this as an opportunity to post some thought-provoking content, which also opens the door to more engagement. Another great idea is to make use of UGC, which stands for User-Generated Content, which we'll go into a bit more in detail as we progress, but just stay aware of it for now. So similar to Facebook, you could also use Instagram to build awareness and also for branding purposes, showcase your culture, not just your product, which is very important in today's day and age. People want to align themselves with businesses and their products and services, not just take part by purchasing them. And obviously, while we're on the topic of Instagram, I do quickly want to mention hashtags, because that's what you would usually think of when you think about Instagram, right? Or at least in the early days of Instagram. I won't go into this too deeply right now, but I will be talking about them in a bit more detail in the very next lesson. Anyways, hashtags are basically a topic within your post, right? Or the topic of your post, more specifically. People can look for specific hashtags. So if your post contains one that is being searched for, you might appear in the results. Also, people can just follow for hashtags rather than the brands. So again, your content would appear. Try not to overdo it though and stick to maximum 1 or 4 hashtags per post. And if you can, try blend them in to make it seem like it's just a part of the general caption. Otherwise, just add them at the end and that will be acceptable too. There are quite a few guidelines on how you can choose the right hashtags, and I'll go through those in the very next lesson with you, because it does take a little bit of research to see what people engage with and what the popular trends are. So we will take an opportunity to get stuck into that when we get the chance in the next lesson. They're not the most relevant to Facebook as much as they are to Instagram. However, you can also use hashtags as a search function on different platforms such as Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn too. And while we're on the topic of LinkedIn, let's have a look at this platform and see in a little bit more detail how it could be a little bit different to the other platforms that we've mentioned and how it could benefit us as a business. So what you would do for a business as your first step into getting involved with LinkedIn is simply set up a business page just like you did on Facebook, right? And there's not too much that's actually different here. It's just a different platform for different engagement, but the nature of how everything flows and operates and what information needs to be provided is very similar. And this would then look like the page that you see up on the screen at the moment. Again, we would have our cover picture and our profile picture at the top. Again, at the same time, to stay consistent, below we have the name of the business and then the description. I mean, you can copy the same description that you've used from the other platforms, because then it becomes relatable and obviously easy to follow, right? Obviously, people would follow you here and on Facebook just for the ease of access to content based on what they prefer to use on a day-to-day basis. So you don't want to make anything too different. You still are the same business on Facebook as you will be on LinkedIn, okay? And we can add a link to our website too, which is quite useful. Then below we have different tabs such as Home, where you can see different posts. My Company is specifically for employees, so I won't jump into that as much. Then we have the About section, posts, jobs that are currently being advertised, and people. So the people is working for the business in this case, right? So people who have aligned themselves with this company and have identified themselves on LinkedIn as employees of this company. And again, with the About section, we want to make sure to be descriptive, professional, and obviously relevant to the other platforms where we've identified ourselves as well, and how we've identified our descriptions. Now, this is a dummy page that was created. And this is what your page would look like from a creator's perspective, if you want to call it that. And again, you can find out a ton about your audience and your post by visiting the analytics and then selecting one of 3 categories. So visitors, people who are visiting your site, updates, so your posts, and followers, so people who are actually following you essentially. All right. I'd also like to take this time and moment to add that while the basics are pretty much the same when it comes to all these platforms, sometimes the same things have different names. So just be aware of that and always look at what, say, metric actually means, for example. Most platforms have explanations, so you can dive into that if you are a little bit confused in a moment. For example, Facebook and Instagram call it Insights, whereas LinkedIn and even Google, it's called Analytics. While LinkedIn is not necessarily as big as the other 2 platforms that we've already gone over, we may have a look at it. It still has 722 million members. That's a really big number, where 57% are male and 43% are female. More than half the users are aged between 25 to 34 years old, which makes sense, as this would be the years where you really start looking for work in your career and you start interacting within the different sectors and industries that you prefer as a professional in those same industries, right? You want to be interacting with people who do the same work or involved in the same industries or have some similar interesting posts that you could follow that impact you and your business, right? LinkedIn is quite a good place in order for that sort of engagement. 4 out of 5 people on LinkedIn are actually decision makers for their business, so it's a high amount of potential users that are really high ranked in the industry. Another thing to keep in mind is that 57% of LinkedIn traffic is mobile. So make sure to optimize your content for that as well, just as we spoke about with regards to Facebook. This is mainly referring to image sizes though, but can also apply to text and positioning. So essentially, what do we actually use LinkedIn for? Obviously, it's a perfect platform for engagement in sectors and industry specific stuff, but it is also the perfect platform for B2B interactions, so business to business as opposed to B2C, which is business to consumer. It's developed into more than just one platform to look for a job, where users have conversations. People can actually interact with one another and talk about specific topics. And as 80% of them are decision makers, it's the perfect opportunity to strike up a conversation with another business and get qualified leads. That's vitally important. It really is. And of course, you would also use the platform to hire employees, and could even be used as a way to encourage employee engagement as well down the line. It's vitally important to use it to its full potential, because it really does have a diverse approach to the new and current age market. Now let's move on to the next part of this lesson, which is search engine optimization, or SEO for short. But we're going to take an opportunity now just to have a brief introduction into the part that SEO has to play in this big picture that we're looking at. Like digital marketing, SEO changes all the time. Google releases new updates very often, sometimes with very little impact and sometimes with huge impact. If you're competitive or in a competitive space with your business, to say the least, you would want to grow fast, Or if branding is your goal, then hiring a quality SEO professional or company is going to be one of your most important investments to make. Trust me on that one, and I'll break that down as to why that exactly is as we progress through the rest of this lesson. Before approaching this, it's always a good idea to do your research though. Which keywords do you want to rank for, and are they realistic? Very important questions to ask. You also need to understand that where you would appear on a search engine results page could change every single day. There is no guarantee that you will be at the top, and there's no guarantee that you'll stay on the 10th page of the search result. Your search history affects your results. So even if you've been searching your brand quite often, for example, and you haven't actually clicked on any of the searches, then Google might deem that as a result, that result specifically as irrelevant, and so they will no longer show to you, right? Just keep that in mind. And also, if you offer local services or your brick and mortar store, local results will be different to other results. So first of all, we have on-page SEO. And on-page SEO is the practice of optimizing individual web pages in order to rank higher and earn more relevant traffic in search engines. So not only Google, but Google is one of the biggest. On-page refers to both the content and the HTML. You know that one. It's the source code of a page that can be optimized. All right, we've already covered that, and we'll continue to as we progress through this entire course. The on-page ranking factors are content, title tags, meta tags, URLs, and alt text. And I'm going to be going through all of those in a bit more detail now so that you can obviously understand them. First up, we have content. Content obviously needs to be relevant and clear. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It also needs to be unique and regular. If you have duplicate content on your site from another site, you will be penalized, okay? Updating your site regularly signals to Google that you have a quality website. It also needs to be content that supplies a demand. If you remember when we first looked at target markets and the elements of a target market statement, you basically need to ask yourself, in this case, what is the problem that your content is trying to solve? Or does your supply meet the demand that is currently existing in the marketplace? All right, are you servicing the demand? That's a very important question to ask in the content that you're posting. And then it needs to be linkable. So you want other publishers to be able to link your content to their pages as well. It's very important to obviously get that awareness and obviously help streamline some sort of traffic directly to your site. This is even more of a signal to Google and other search engines that your site is relevant and a great way to increase your overall activity. Then we have title tags. And title tags is an HTML element specifying the title of a page. They are obviously clickable headlines that you see in organic search engine results page, and that's what it stands for essentially. They are recommended to between 50 to 60 characters in length, so the search engine, let's just say Google, doesn't cut it off. All right, very important to ensure you get that right. If your title tags are duplicated anywhere, this will obviously affect your ranking as well. Then you should also just focus on avoiding keyword stuffing. And that's really just the packaging of a small amount of content with a ton of keywords. And it really just looks like one big fake ad. So please make sure that you avoid that because it's really not that pleasing to look at. I also recommend that you avoid the default titles like home or product page. Okay, that's just really outdated and it needs to be innovated and improved in order to improve engagement. They are often proven to reduce the click-through rates, so something more informative and relevant would be better. Include your brand if it has a strong presence, and finally, think about your customers when writing them. Don't think about yourself and what you wanted to say. Think about their overall user experience as well. Right? Think about what they will relate to more. Looking at the meta tags give an explanation of what is on the title page. Search engines like Google often display the meta descriptions of their search results. It should only be up to around 160 characters long. Again, if it's longer, then Google and other search engines will cut it off. So use some sort of keywords that you want to rank in the form of a meta tag. But again, don't overdo it as it will give you the opposite of your desired result. And try and use it as a writing an ad. Well, try and see it as writing an ad, for example. And Google doesn't take meta tags from other keywords into account. So please do remember that, and actually write that down in your notes so you remember it moving forward too. But as these have a different effect on your CTRs, by default, it does impact your ranking as well. Right, so URLs. So these show the hierarchy of the information on the page. A good example of a URL is here on the left, and we see a very bad example of a URL on the right. So the first one shows a hierarchy of the information on the page. It's a history and it pertains to digital marketing in the context of marketing more specifically. The information is used to determine the relevancy of a given web page by the search engine due to the hierarchy. The engines can assume that the page likely doesn't pertain to history in general, but rather to that of history of digital marketing. On the other hand, the URL on the right tells the user absolutely nothing, and due to this, the search engine won't really necessarily see it as a relevant search result as all. So you can immediately see the difference and obviously why it would have such a big impact for us. Alt text describes the appearance of the images on your site. If someone is visually impaired, this would be read out to them. It will also be displayed in place of an image if it failed to load for whatever reason. They also could provide better image context to search engine crawlers, helping them index it properly too. We're going to go into that a bit more in just a minute, but just understand, for example, a bad example of an alt tag is this beautiful lady here being described as what could just be a dress, right? Whereas a good example would be beautiful woman wearing a red dress, right? It's a bit more descriptive and obviously leads the alt text to explaining a bit more in detail about what's going on the page. After on-page SEO, we have off-page SEO. This is far more difficult to get right than on-page SEO, and I think it's a part of what makes SEO seem so mysterious. We aren't going to go into too much detail on this, just because it is a bit more advanced, but I will take you through a few things. So off-page SEO simply refers to all the activities that you and your customers do away from your website to increase the ranking of a page within the search engines. The off-page ranking factors are links, and this is referring to links on your site, not to your site. Please remember that difference. So things like referrals, social media links, other publishers linking to you, brand mentions. Also without links, there can't be that factor. Trust, which has to do with your reputation, and if you have a security certificate on your site. So that's the difference between an HTTP and a HTTPS. Social is a big drop-off page ranking factor, including things like links, shared reviews, and other engagements could definitely help paint a clearer picture around understanding that social element. And then the history of your site and the brand and your reputation that goes with it. This is also a factor and must be mentioned and obviously well understood in order to get right. And I actually think that this is why SEO can be so hard to actually get right. It gets quite complicated at times, but if we can just categorize our understanding of it, then obviously applying it for ourselves and our own businesses would make so much more sense. But just remember, if you keep your brand clean and you respond to criticism and you provide quality content, then your chances are much higher for rankings. And the rankings is what it all comes down to. It can get a little bit overwhelming, as I mentioned, but if we just focus on what matters to us the most and what we have direct control over, then we'll certainly focus on working on those ranking factors to the best of our ability from the start. So just focus on what you have immediate control over. An integral part of keeping tabs on your SEO efforts is the Google Search Console. The Google Search Console is where you can optimize content by finding out which queries brings users to the site. You can analyze the site impressions, clicks, and your position on Google too. And also, it can be integrated with Google Ads, which gives you the ability to see performance of paid versus organic traffic. To link it to your site, you need to log onto your Google Search Console with your Google account details. You'll then be asked to select a property type, either a domain or URL, and then you need to enter that URL to continue. You'll be asked to verify the domain ownership. You would also have to add a piece of code into your DNS configuration. You would find this within whichever CMS that you're using to manage your site, just because it's of absolute importance. So let's have a look at some of the features that Google Search Console provides us with. Optimize content. So this is what I was talking about earlier with regards to seeing queries that bring people to your site, you would then make sure that you include the keywords in feature copy. Organic metrics are straightforward. You can view and analyze these pretty easily and on the go. Likewise, position on search engine result pages is pretty straightforward too. You can see those within Search Console. And just as a side note, if it's not like Google Ads directly, okay, where there is only 8 positions. In this case, there are hundreds, and it's essentially a whole internet where you are then in the grand scheme of things. You can integrate Google Search Console and Google Ads to see performance of organic versus paid traffic too, which is really interesting to really get into the wormhole of. You can also submit sitemaps and individual URLs for crawling. And you can also review your index coverage to make sure that Google has the freshest view of your site. But you can also receive alerts on different issues that are ongoing on the site. So Google will notify you with specific URLs are affected and which specific URLs that is, and also what the errors are. So you can actually monitor and track the AMP pages very closely so that you can stay up to date with what's going on. And remember, AMP stands for Amplified Mobile Pages, and are a way for Google to show you pages a lot quicker on mobile devices than what you would see them if you were just logging into a random URL going through your search browser on the phone. So none of this work is actually done by humans, by the way. I think it's worth mentioning. It's all actually automated. There is no humans looking into the websites on the internet, but the so-called Google bots are doing all the heavy lifting for us, because they've been coded to obviously look in the right avenues, all right, to be there working for us and with us at times. So what Google bots are and what they do is very specific. A bot is really just a program that can interact with different systems. That's what it comes down to. So Google bots crawl and index the internet, of which your site is a part of, right? Looking at and crawling is when a bot looks at all the content and code on your pages and then analyzes it. Indexing is seeing if the page is eligible to show up in search results. So essentially, Google bots basically look at the content on your page to determine if it can be eligible to show up in search results. It's quite an interesting concept if you think about it. It's estimated that Google bots take 3 months to index a new site. According to boostability.com, if your site is older and not experiencing crawling, your design could be an issue. When bots can't access your site, it decreases your ranking. So it's very important to make sure that it's user-friendly. So how do they all know where to look on your site then? It's something called a site map, which is essentially a list of all the pages on your site in order of importance. A site map tells Google bots what pages to index. They tell Google how often you update your content too. So it's recommended to submit your sitemap each time you publish changes. This could actually lead Google to indexing your site a lot faster than what it generally would. I can never give you an exact estimation of how often Google will index your site, or if they will actually get to it at all, depending on what the setup or layout is like, but it completely differs from time to time. Clearly, and more obviously, the bigger sites are indexed a lot more often than what the average site is, but we'll get into how we can boost our index on our site in a lot more detail as we progress. You can check if your site has been indexed by typing in a site websitesname.com or .org, whatever the ending to your website link might be. Obviously, don't include the quotation marks here, but it's obviously just something that I need to quote. That's why they're there. But go ahead, if you do have a website, just check out if your website has been indexed. It's always quite a surprising result when you can get down to that factor. All right, it's always very, very interesting, especially if you have a new website set up and you want to actually see if Google has recognized it properly yet, or if it has been indexed. It's always very interesting. Something that is great for local SEO is a Google My Business page. I really do suggest this. It's a free tool that lets you manage how your business appears on Google Search and Google Maps. That includes your business name, your location and hours, monitoring your replying to customer reviews, adding photos, learning where and how people are searching you, and much more as well. You'd start off simply by searching Google My Business, at which point you'll then be directed to this page. So what you need to do is easy. Just click on Start Now. All right, that's a great way to start. And obviously you need to register your business correctly so it recognizes which page to actually start working on. If you already have a business but haven't claimed it yet, you would need to search for it at the top of the page. And this would avoid a few of the steps in between, but you would still be filling out the same information just within what looks like a completed Google My Business profile. If you don't have a listing, you would choose to add your business to Google, and then you would follow the prompted steps that go on from there. You then need to obviously add your company name and then choose whether you want to include the location or not. Right? That's completely up to you. Obviously, some of the businesses either don't have a location. For example, maybe you could be working from home, or maybe it's an online retail shop that you don't want to list the location for. Whatever the reason may be, it is entirely up to you and obviously must align with the business itself. If you choose the option to include a location, you'll be asked to input your address, and obviously you need to make sure it's 100% accurate, especially if you rely on people visiting your store. It's vitally important that you actually include a very valid address, or else people aren't going to be able to find your maps, navigate to your business when using navigation systems that run off Google Maps as a data provider. But also you just want to ensure that you ensure some sort of legitimacy to your business. If it's a half-beated address that you've included there and doesn't really have all the details that it needs to, such as a postal code or a suburb, but just has a street address, it's not really going to look too legit. So it's very important that you include as much detail there as you possibly can. Finally, you would choose which details you want to show your customers in the extra bit in the search results, which then could of course include your contact details, right? You don't always need to have your contact details there because that is listed on your site. However, it does show a bit more legitimacy, for example. And then voila, you're done pretty much. You have a Google My Business page. It's all pretty simple, and it all really depends on how you want to be positioned and what information you want to portray to the customers. All up to you, but the more the merrier, there's no doubt to that. After creating this page, you need to verify it. And there are several ways you can actually do that. One is by postcard, believe it or not, and then obviously phone, email, instant verification, and bulk verification. You need to just make sure that you choose the best option for your efficiency and effectiveness of achieving this goal in your business, but just make sure that you do it for each location that you are listed in. Part of Google My Business is maps, and you need to take this into consideration. Nowadays, when people are searching for something, they are not looking through the yellow pages, or they're not looking through a local phone book or going to a library or whatever it may be. They're going to their handheld devices or their computers, and they're searching for specific things that have very specific keywords noted in them, and you want to fall a part of the results that pop up. It's vitally important that you establish yourself as a provider to the searches in the results that people are obviously that people have popping up in front of them. It's very important that you establish yourself, ladies and gents. Nowadays, a business that is not established on Google really doesn't have much validation or some sort of reference. It needs to be a good player in the game of that industry in today's world. I mean, if you're not listed on Google, you might as well be completely invisible to the potential client. You might as well just not exist. And quite honestly, if you don't exist on Google, people tend to steer away from even thinking about you as an option. They might just hear about you, but then if you don't appear via word of mouth, for instance, but if you don't appear on a Google search, then people are less inclined to actually utilize your services or buy your products, because obviously they have no reference to go and double check themselves or do their due diligence on. It's very important that you make sure you spend some time stating your presence on Google so that you can appear on maps and obviously show people where you are, and obviously give some sort of a contact to as well. It's very, very, very important that we do that. Some other very important points to remember when it comes to your Google My Business page is that your profile photo is what appears when you upload new photos, videos, or even reviews to responses. So it's important to make sure that it's good, high quality and relevant content that's very easily identifiable without having to go in and download it and maximize the image, or zoom in this case. The Google My Business cover photo is one of the most important as it shows up front center to the listing. You can also add videos to this as well, but pictures are probably more relevant as people don't necessarily always go into those photos. They just want to see a high quality pop-up just to ensure that they have searched the right page. And then reviews. Reviews are very, very important to make sure that we're on top of, because they're viewable to the listing. As soon as your business pops up, then the reviews will too. And obviously that speaks a lot to who you are, what you do, and how well you have done it as well. So please always make sure that you do respond to the reviews, because that includes some sort of ranking system that Google will obviously filter through and obviously rank your response time on, and the quality of your responses too, which people can engage with. And the better your ranking and the better your response to the reviews, the better your overall positioning will be too. Suggest and edit, as you can see I've highlighted it on the listing, is where people can obviously suggest and edit to the information being provided, and sometimes it can get approved without you actually knowing. So it's very important to log onto your business profile as often as possible, and also just make sure that no one is doing anything funny to your listing and it's positioned the way that you intended to without any unauthorized changes. Okay. It's time to have a quick look at some other free marketing options. Not in huge detail though, because we are running out of a bit of time. Some other free marketing options include influencer marketing, guest posting, and cold emailing. And I must just mention that influencer marketing is probably taking the world by the biggest storm. People obviously relate to what their favorite influencer on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook is talking about and promoting, and they trust what they say about these products or the places they go to or the services they use because they follow their content pretty closely. And if you can get in contact with an influencer who can speak about your products, use them on screen, and obviously do certain reviews, then the response to those products would be deemed as more genuine and obviously trustworthy by the people who are following these influencers. It's a strategy and type of marketing that needs to be utilized because it's definitely been around for quite a while now, and it's certainly something that will continue to be used as time goes on as well, and as social media and these different platforms get more advanced. There are some other great free tools as well, and some of my favorites include Hootsuite, which is really fantastic. It's a social media management tool that is quite exciting to actually go into and get stuck into a wormhole around. They do offer free plans and includes 2 social profiles, so let's say Facebook and Twitter, a maximum of 5 scheduled posts and 1 user. So only one person can actually be using it, clearly in this case, but it is great for someone who is just starting out, as it allows us to see all your profiles in one place. It's really fantastic. You can also get a 30-day free trial for the first 2 paid plans, so check it out. That's hootsuite.com, and certainly something that you can kick off with as soon as possible. Canva is a design tool, and it does offer a free option as well. Though there are pro options as well that are generally paid for, you can design almost anything here. Presentation, social media posts, posters, flyers, etc. The list really does go on, and you can use it to your benefit to really help position yourself as a professional who focuses on the quality of their content in a bit more detail as well. So definitely have a look at that. MailChimp used to be known as an email marketing platform, but it has since evolved. You can now create and publish emails, organic social posts, paid social remarketing ads, forms, landing pages, and much more. The free option of MailChimp allows you 7 different channels. Automizations, so that's one-click automizations, which are very easy to set up and use. If you haven't used them before, it's really not that intimidating, but really simple to use, and that you can just use as reminders or some sort of email to around your newsletters, or reminders to subscribe to the newsletters, etc. But obviously basic templates and CRM to households up over to 2,000 contacts is what you can gain access to as well. It's really intriguing and certainly something that you should utilize as a part of your business. Then we have Zapier, which is a bit of a tricky one to explain, but quite simply, it's a connection or an integration between 2 or more apps that integrate your tasks. I hope that's easy enough to understand, but if you want a bit more of an understanding of it, you're more than welcome to go and Google the page and obviously just walk through their landing page. It's quite self-explanatory when you go through it, and I'm sure you'll find some sort of value to understand how it could work in your personal business as well. And then we have a SurveyMonkey, which is something that creates surveys, polls, and quizzes with free option. All right, you obviously have unlimited surveys, which is pretty awesome. 10 questions per survey, which might sound like quite a few, but the more you start focusing on building your business and obviously expanding, the more you want to ask people and engage with people, right? SurveyMonkey is quite easy to use and is available as a free platform. But if you want to expand how many questions you can ask or how many people you can reach out to, obviously there are different options to expand on just that. So ladies and gents, that is it for today. We're going to leave this lesson right here. I'm looking forward to getting into lesson 6 with you, where we can expand on this amazing content and obviously help you understand the world of digital marketing and what it can do for your business. I'm really looking forward to the next lesson, and I hope you are too. Until we get to lesson 6, take care, look after yourselves. We'll chat soon. Take care. Bye. Ladies and gents, a huge welcome back to you all to a professional diploma in digital marketing and SEO. Today's lesson is going to be focused on content developing. So let's have a look at the contents of today's lesson. First of all, you'll start to understand exactly what content is and why we actually need it. Then we'll get to know the different types of content as well. We'll also then have a look at learning how to repurpose content for the different formats and channels that we'll be using. And towards the end of this lesson, you'll get to know exactly how to craft your own ads, where we'll go through some basic examples and obviously different practices used by marketers in today's day and age. So let's kick off with the following. What actually is content development? Essentially, content development is researching, producing, and publishing information to meet a strategic goal. So looking for and actually coming up with information we publish for our audiences. This could be to encourage engagement, generate